The cowboy's horse had been missing for 3 days. He came back with a wounded Apache woman. Samuel, a cowboy who had spent most of his life on horseback, stepped out of his small wooden cabin. The air was crisp and carried the faint smell of wild grass. As he walked toward the stable, a sudden feeling of unease gripped him. Something was wrong. When he reached the stable, Samuel froze. Rusty, his loyal horse who had been by his side for years, was gone. The stall was empty, and the ground showed signs that the horse had left in a hurry. Panic stirred in Samuel's chest. Rusty was not just any horse. He was Samuel's friend, his companion through long rides, harsh weather, and lonely nights on the open plains. Losing Rusty felt like losing a part of himself. Samuel's mind raced. "Where could he have gone?" he whispered, his voice breaking the morning silence. He knew the plains were dangerous, wild animals roamed freely, and bandits sometimes traveled through the area. Rusty could have wandered into trouble, and the thought of it made Samuel's stomach tighten. He immediately grabbed a rope, a few supplies, and set out to track his horse. The town watched him leave with curiosity and concern. People waved or called out warnings, but Samuel barely noticed. His focus was on Rusty. He followed hoof prints in the soft earth, hoping they would lead him to his horse. The tracks were faint in some places and broken in others, but Samuel's sharp eyes didn't miss a single detail. He moved steadily, the quiet determination of a man who would not give up easily. As he ventured farther from the town, the landscape grew wilder. Rolling hills stretched out before him, dotted with bushes and tall grass. The wind whispered through the plains, carrying sounds that seemed almost alive. Birds flew overhead, startled by his presence, and somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. Samuel tightened his grip on the rope, ready for anything. He had faced danger before, but the thought of Rusty in trouble made him more alert than ever. The first night came quickly, and Samuel had to find a place to rest. He made a small camp near a cluster of rocks, building a fire that flickered in the darkness. He sat by the flames, thinking about the past few days. Rusty had been acting restless before disappearing, pawing at the ground and neighing as if he sensed something. Samuel wondered if the horse had sensed danger, something that Samuel could not see. Sleep was difficult. The sounds of the plains were alive with movement, rustling grass, the distant call of an owl, the soft murmur of a creek nearby. Samuel kept one eye open, listening for the familiar sound of Rusty's hooves. Each snap of a twig made his heart jump. He whispered Rusty's name into the night, hoping the horse could hear him. The next morning, Samuel continued his search. He moved carefully, scanning every inch of the land. Hours passed, and the sun climbed higher in the sky, turning the plains into a shimmering sea of gold. Samuel's legs ached, and his stomach growled, but he refused to give up. Every trace of Rusty was precious, and Samuel knew that patience and attention could make the difference between finding him and losing him forever. During the search, Samuel noticed unusual signs. There were tracks that didn't belong to Rusty, prints of something larger and more deliberate. He paused, studying them closely. They seemed to move alongside Rusty's tracks for a while, then diverged. Samuel's mind raced with possibilities. Could it have been a predator? Or maybe a person had taken Rusty? He tightened his jaw, determined to find the answer. By the second day, fatigue began to settle in. Samuel's hands were blistered from holding the rope and searching through the underbrush. His face was streaked with dust and sweat. Yet he pressed on. He remembered the bond he shared with Rusty, the quiet mornings riding across the plains, the long evenings sitting by the fire together, the countless times Rusty had saved him from danger. Giving up was not an option. That evening, Samuel found a small stream and drank deeply, filling a canteen with water. He sat on a rock nearby, watching the sun sink behind the hills. Memories of the past mingled with worry for the present. He recalled a time when he had first found Rusty as a young foal, abandoned and weak. Samuel had nursed him back to health, and over the years they had formed a connection that went beyond words. Rusty was not just a horse, he was family. As darkness fell, Samuel built another fire. The night was colder now, and the wind carried a hint of rain. He wrapped himself in a blanket and listened to the sounds around him. Somewhere in the distance, he thought he heard a faint whinny, a sound that made his heart leap. He strained his ears, but the sound was gone before he could be certain. Still, hope stirred within him, a fragile but persistent feeling. The third day brought renewed determination. Samuel followed every trace of Rusty he could find. He climbed hills and crossed shallow streams, stopping frequently to examine tracks in the soft earth. He noticed small signs that Rusty had been there: broken twigs, disturbed grass, and the occasional hoof print. Each discovery gave him a spark of hope, driving him onward. By late afternoon, Samuel came upon a clearing. The sun shone brightly, casting long shadows across the grass. And then there he was, Rusty, grazing peacefully near a small creek. Relief and joy flooded Samuel's chest. He ran toward the horse, calling his name, and Rusty lifted his head, ears pricked forward. The sight of Samuel made the horse neigh, a sound that filled the air with life. Samuel felt tears prick his eyes as he approached, wrapping his arms around Rusty's neck. But something was different. Near the creek, partially hidden behind rocks and brush, Samuel noticed movement. At first he thought it was a wild animal, but as he approached cautiously, he saw a wounded woman, her face streaked with dirt and blood, her clothes torn. She looked up at Samuel with wide, fearful eyes. He froze, unsure of what to do, but something inside him told him she needed help. Samuel moved slowly, speaking in a calm, gentle voice. "It's okay, I won't hurt you," he said. The woman flinched but did not move away. Samuel noticed the arrow wound in her shoulder and the exhaustion in her eyes. She was an Apache woman, alone and in pain, far from safety. Samuel's heart ached at the sight. He had faced danger many times, but this was different. Here was someone completely vulnerable, someone who needed him, and he could not turn away. He approached carefully, holding out a hand and speaking softly. Rusty stayed nearby, watching, as if sensing the importance of the moment. Samuel's mind raced with questions. How had she come to be here? Had she been attacked? Could she be trusted? Yet all of that mattered less than the immediate need to help her. With great care, he helped her stand and guided her toward Rusty. She winced in pain, but Samuel was patient, speaking words of reassurance. Finally, she allowed Samuel to help her onto Rusty. The horse shifted slightly under the added weight but remained calm, as if understanding the urgency of the situation. Samuel climbed up behind her, holding her carefully to keep her stable. He felt the warmth of her body, the tension in her muscles, and the fragility of life in that moment. The plains stretched endlessly around them, but Samuel's focus was entirely on getting her to safety. As they began the journey back toward town, Samuel's mind was filled with questions and reflections. He thought about the loneliness of the plains, the unpredictable dangers, and the ways life could change in an instant. One moment, Rusty had been missing. The next, Samuel was carrying a wounded woman to safety. The experience reminded him of the fragile balance between fear and hope, danger and compassion. The wind blew across their faces as they moved steadily forward. Samuel whispered words of encouragement to the woman, and though she could not respond, her eyes held a glimmer of trust. The journey was difficult, but Samuel's determination never wavered. Every step brought them closer to help, closer to healing, closer to the possibility of understanding and connection in a world that often seemed harsh and unforgiving. By the time the sun began to dip below the horizon, Samuel had guided Rusty and the woman toward the edges of the town. The familiar sights of the buildings, fences, and distant smoke of chimneys brought a sense of relief. Samuel knew that the next steps would be just as important: finding help, tending to her wounds, and navigating the reactions of the townspeople. But for now, the immediate danger had passed. Rusty was safe, and the wounded woman was alive. In that quiet, golden light of evening, Samuel felt a deep sense of purpose. The plains were vast and often lonely, but moments like these reminded him of the power of compassion, courage, and connection. He had set out to find his horse and had found much more: an opportunity to make a difference, to act with honor, and to confront the uncertainties of life with strength and kindness. Samuel led Rusty carefully through the tall grass, keeping a gentle hand on the reins as the wounded woman leaned weakly against him. Her breathing was shallow, and every movement seemed to cause her pain. Samuel's heart tightened at the sight. He had rescued many animals and faced danger countless times, but the fragility of human life in such moments always struck him differently. He whispered softly, "Hold on, we'll get you help soon." The woman did not speak, but her eyes followed him with a mixture of fear and cautious trust. Samuel noticed the arrow wound in her shoulder, and the blood had begun to dry, leaving streaks on her skin and clothes. He reached into his saddlebag for a small first aid kit he always carried. Using gentle hands, he cleaned the wound as best as he could with water from a canteen, careful not to cause more pain. She flinched at first, but then stayed still, as if sensing his care. As they moved slowly toward the town, Samuel reflected on the risks of the journey. The plains were wide and open, leaving them exposed to wildlife, harsh weather, or even people who might not understand the situation. He had to keep the woman safe while guiding Rusty carefully over uneven ground, shallow streams, and rocky patches. Every decision mattered. One wrong move, and both Rusty and the woman could be hurt. Despite the danger, Samuel felt a growing connection to the woman. She was quiet, her face pale but strong in the way she held herself. He could see that she had endured a lot, likely surviving on her own for some time. Samuel wondered about her story, how she had come to be alone and wounded so far from her home. He did not speak of it aloud, respecting her privacy, but he felt a deep curiosity and concern. The sun climbed higher in the sky, turning the plains into a bright, almost blinding expanse. Samuel shaded his eyes and scanned the horizon, making sure no dangers lurked ahead. Rusty moved steadily, sensing Samuel's calm determination. Occasionally, the horse snorted or flicked its tail, responding to small noises in the distance. A hawk circling overhead, the rustle of bushes, or the distant call of another animal. Samuel remained alert, speaking softly to Rusty as much as to the woman. During a brief stop near a cluster of rocks, Samuel offered the woman a small piece of bread he had packed. She accepted it with trembling hands, taking tiny bites. Samuel smiled gently. "Good. Eat a little at a time. We need your strength," he said. It was slow work, but even small moments like this reminded him of the importance of patience and care. The woman nodded faintly, not speaking but communicating in her own quiet way that she understood. As they continued, Samuel noticed signs of movement in the distance, tracks in the soft soil, broken branches, and footprints that did not belong to him or Rusty. He paused, studying them carefully. They were faint, but he could tell they were fresh. Samuel's pulse quickened, not with fear but with caution. He whispered, "Stay close and don't move suddenly." Rusty shifted under his hand but remained calm, trusting Samuel's guidance. The hours passed slowly, but Samuel never wavered. He adjusted the woman's position occasionally, checking to make sure she was comfortable, and encouraged her to rest when she could. He offered water from his canteen, holding it for her while she drank in small sips. Each moment of care, each gentle gesture, strengthened the fragile bond forming between them. She began to relax slightly, leaning against him with a little less fear. By mid-afternoon, the sky began to darken slightly with scattered clouds. Samuel sensed that a storm might be approaching. He knew they needed shelter soon, or the journey would become far more dangerous. He spotted a small grove of trees in the distance and guided Rusty carefully toward it. The trees offered some cover and a place to rest for a short while. Samuel dismounted and helped the woman down from the horse, supporting her as they walked a few steps toward a safe spot. Samuel set up a small area with blankets and used some nearby branches to create a makeshift shield from the wind. He cleaned and rebandaged her wound again, making sure it was secure but not too tight. The woman flinched a little but seemed calmer now, her trust in him growing with each gentle action. Samuel spoke softly, telling her about the small town nearby and that there were people who could help her heal fully. She listened, her eyes reflecting a mixture of relief and uncertainty. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves and sending a chill through the grove. Samuel knew they needed to keep moving to reach proper shelter. He helped the woman back onto Rusty, adjusting her position carefully so she would be stable during the ride. He mounted behind her, holding her securely, and whispered words of reassurance. Rusty stepped forward calmly, understanding that the journey was not yet over but trusting Samuel completely. As they rode, Samuel thought about the woman's life before this moment. He imagined her growing up in a close-knit community, learning the ways of her people, traveling across the plains with skill and courage. Something had happened to separate her from her home, leaving her vulnerable and alone. Samuel felt a deep respect for her resilience. He knew that her survival to this point was a testament to her strength, and it made him determined to see her safely through the rest of the journey. The plains stretched endlessly around them, the wind carrying the scent of grass, earth, and distant rain. Samuel guided Rusty carefully through the uneven terrain, speaking softly to keep the woman calm. Every sound seemed amplified, the creak of the horse's saddle, the rustle of the wind, the distant call of animals. Samuel's senses were heightened, focused entirely on keeping them safe. Each step forward was measured and deliberate. By late afternoon, Samuel spotted the edge of the town in the distance. The sight filled him with relief, but he knew the journey was not over. Villagers might not understand why he had brought a wounded Apache woman into town. Prejudices and fear were strong in these parts, and he had to be careful. Still, the immediate priority was her safety and getting her the care she needed. He slowed Rusty's pace as they approached the town, keeping the woman steady and comfortable. People on the streets noticed them and began to gather, whispering and pointing. Samuel ignored the murmurs, focusing on reaching the healer's house where he knew they could help her. Rusty moved steadily, and the woman's breathing began to ease slightly as they got closer to safety. When they reached the healer's house, Samuel helped the woman down gently. The healer, a kind woman named Martha, immediately understood the urgency. Samuel explained what had happened briefly, and Martha began tending to the wound with skill and care. The woman winced at first, but Martha's gentle hands and calm demeanor reassured her. Samuel stepped back slightly, giving them space while staying close enough to protect her. As the evening descended, the woman began to speak softly, telling a few words of her story. Samuel listened carefully, offering support and encouragement. He did not rush her, allowing her to speak only when she felt ready. The bond of trust that had formed during the long ride now deepened, creating a connection built on compassion, patience, and respect. Samuel reflected on the day, the hardships of the journey, and the strength of both Rusty and the woman. He realized that life on the plains was unpredictable and often harsh, but moments like this reminded him of the power of kindness, courage, and empathy. The plains were wide and wild, but human connection could make even the most difficult journeys meaningful and transformative. By nightfall, the woman rested in a safe, warm room, and Samuel stepped outside, taking a deep breath of the cool evening air. Rusty grazed nearby, loyal and calm, as if sensing the relief in Samuel's heart. The town had grown quiet, and Samuel felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He had rescued his horse and helped someone in need, proving to himself that courage and compassion could guide him through even the most challenging circumstances. As he watched the stars appear one by one in the clear night sky, Samuel knew that this was only the beginning of their story. The bond formed during the journey, the trust earned through patience, and the courage shown in the face of uncertainty would shape the days to come. For now, he allowed himself a quiet moment of reflection, grateful for Rusty, for the woman, and for the strength that had carried them through the plains together. Samuel stayed close as Martha worked quickly and carefully to treat the wounded woman. The room was small, filled with the scent of herbs and warm fire smoke. Samuel's hands hovered near the woman, ready to assist if needed. She flinched slightly whenever Martha touched the arrow wound, but her fear was slowly giving way to trust. Samuel could see her body relaxing just a little as Martha spoke in soft, reassuring tones. Once the wound was cleaned and bandaged, Martha offered water and a simple meal. Samuel helped the woman take small sips and bites. She accepted the food cautiously, her eyes wary of him at first, but gradually she began to feel safe in his presence. Samuel noticed the tension in her shoulders lessen as she realized she would not be harmed here. He felt relief wash over him, knowing that the immediate danger had passed, but he also understood that the larger challenge had just begun. Outside the room, villagers had begun to gather, their curiosity and concern growing with each passing moment. Samuel could hear whispers and murmurs, questions about who the woman was, why she was here, and whether it was safe. Some voices carried skepticism and others fear. Samuel felt a tight knot in his stomach. He had faced danger on the plains countless times, but now he was facing a different kind of challenge, one that required patience, understanding, and courage in front of people who might not understand his actions. He stepped outside and raised his hands to calm the crowd. "She is hurt, she needs help. That is all," he said firmly, his voice carrying across the small gathering. Some villagers nodded, understanding the urgency, while others exchanged uneasy glances. Samuel knew he could not force them to trust him, but he could set an example through his actions. He returned to the woman, making sure she remained comfortable and safe. Over the next few hours, Samuel worked closely with Martha, preparing additional remedies and supplies to care for the woman. He learned more about her condition and did everything he could to ensure she would recover quickly. The woman gradually began to speak in short phrases, telling her name and sharing a few details of her story. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant, but Samuel listened attentively, offering encouragement and patience. Each word she spoke was a small victory, a sign that trust was building between them. Samuel also reflected on the difficulties she must have faced before arriving in the town. He imagined her traveling alone across the plains, encountering danger at every turn, and relying on her strength and courage to survive. The arrow wound was only one of many hardships she had endured, and Samuel felt a deep respect for her resilience. He knew that helping her recover would take time and care, but he was determined to see her through it. Meanwhile, some villagers remained wary. They whispered about the history of conflict between settlers and the Apache people, expressing doubts about whether the woman could be trusted. Samuel overheard some of these comments, but chose not to respond with anger. Instead, he focused on demonstrating compassion and responsibility through his actions. By caring for her without complaint or hesitation, he showed the community that helping someone in need transcended fear and prejudice. As evening fell, Samuel prepared a small bed in the corner of the room for the woman, making sure she would be comfortable throughout the night. He arranged blankets and pillows, speaking softly to reassure her that she was safe. The woman looked at him with gratitude in her eyes, her trust growing slowly but surely. Samuel could see that her strength was returning, and that thought gave him hope. The night was quiet, broken only by the soft sounds of the town and the crackling of the fire. Samuel stayed nearby, watching over Rusty, who rested outside in a small pen, and keeping a protective eye on the woman. He thought about the events of the past days, the search for Rusty, the discovery of the woman, and the careful journey back to town. Each step had been filled with uncertainty, but now they had reached a moment of safety and respite. The next morning, Samuel woke early and checked on the woman. She was resting peacefully, the color returning to her face and her breathing steady. Martha had prepared a nourishing breakfast, and Samuel helped her eat in small portions. He noticed a faint smile on her lips as she took a sip of water, and it warmed his heart. For the first time since he had found her, she seemed almost at ease. Samuel spent the morning gathering information about the woman's tribe and background. He wanted to understand where she had come from and how to reunite her with her people safely. He asked the woman gently about her journey, and she shared fragments of her story. She had been traveling with her family when danger struck, scattering her from the group and leaving her injured and alone. Samuel listened carefully, piecing together the sequence of events while offering reassurance that she would be safe now. By midday, Samuel knew he had to address the concerns of the townspeople. Some still watched from a distance, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and caution. Samuel called a few of the elders together, explaining the situation calmly and clearly. "She is hurt. She needs care. We have a duty to help her," he said firmly. Slowly, the elders began to understand the urgency and the importance of compassion. Their hesitation softened as they saw Samuel's dedication and the woman's growing strength. Over the following days, Samuel continued to care for the woman alongside Martha. He helped with meals, kept her company, and ensured that Rusty remained nearby as a source of comfort and familiarity. The woman's health steadily improved, and her trust in Samuel grew stronger. She began to communicate more, telling short stories about her family, her travels, and the challenges she had faced. Samuel listened with patience, learning more about her life and gaining a deeper understanding of her resilience and courage. During this time, Samuel also reflected on his own life. He had spent years traveling the plains alone, relying on his skills and Rusty's loyalty. But caring for someone in need opened his heart in a new way. He realized that courage was not just about facing danger on the plains, but also about showing kindness, patience, and understanding to those who needed it most. The bond he formed with the woman, though born from necessity, became a source of strength and purpose. The woman's recovery was slow but steady. Samuel guided her gently through small exercises to regain strength and mobility, always careful not to overexert her. He encouraged her to speak, to share her thoughts, and to express herself freely. Each day brought new progress, and the townspeople began to see the transformation as well. Fear and suspicion gradually gave way to respect and admiration, as Samuel's actions demonstrated the power of compassion and the importance of helping those in need. One afternoon, as the sun cast long shadows across the town, the woman stood by Rusty for the first time since the injury. She patted the horse gently, and Rusty responded with a soft nicker. Samuel watched, proud of her progress, and felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had also been meaningful and transformative. The bond between them and between Rusty and the woman had grown stronger with each passing day. As evening fell, Samuel sat outside with the woman and Rusty nearby. He reflected on the lessons he had learned: patience, empathy, courage, and the importance of standing firm in the face of doubt and fear. The woman, now stronger and more confident, looked at him with gratitude and trust. Though they had only known each other for a short time, a deep connection had formed, one built on mutual respect, care, and shared experience. The town, once wary and cautious, began to accept the presence of the woman. People offered small gestures of kindness, bringing food or checking in on her progress. Samuel observed quietly, understanding that change takes time, but believing that compassion and courage could inspire understanding and acceptance. The woman, once alone and vulnerable, was now part of a small community that had begun to recognize her humanity and strength. By nightfall, the woman rested comfortably, her breathing even, and Rusty lay nearby in the soft grass. Samuel sat under the stars, reflecting on the events of the past days. He had set out to find his horse and had found so much more: a wounded soul in need of help, a journey of trust and compassion, and the reminder that courage is not just about surviving the plains, but about helping others when they need it most. The days passed slowly, each one bringing new challenges and small victories. The wounded woman was recovering steadily, her strength returning little by little. Samuel continued to stay by her side, helping her walk, feeding her, and guiding her through each step of the healing process. Rusty remained close, grazing quietly nearby and nuzzling her hand when she reached out. The bond between the three of them had grown stronger than ever. Samuel noticed small changes in her demeanor. She began to smile more often, her eyes less fearful, and her movements more confident. The fear that had gripped her when he first found her was slowly fading. She started to speak in longer sentences, describing her journey and the hardships she had faced. Her words were careful but honest, full of courage and resilience. Samuel listened patiently, understanding that trust was built slowly, one gentle word at a time. Martha continued to assist in her recovery, providing herbal remedies and guidance. Samuel learned how to apply ointments and bandages properly, following Martha's instructions closely. He realized that healing was not just physical but emotional as well. The woman had endured a great deal of trauma, and Samuel's calm presence, combined with Martha's care, helped her regain a sense of safety and stability. The town began to notice the changes as well. At first, people had been wary, whispering doubts about the woman's intentions and the reason Samuel had brought her to town. Now, as they observed her improving and Samuel's unwavering support, suspicion slowly turned into respect. A few villagers even offered to help, bringing food, blankets, and small gifts. Samuel accepted their assistance quietly, grateful for the support, but he never let the woman feel overwhelmed or pressured. During these days, Samuel also learned more about the woman's life before she had been injured. She spoke of her family, her community, and the traditions she cherished. Samuel listened intently, realizing how much she had lost and how difficult it must have been to survive alone on the plains. Each story she shared deepened his respect for her strength and resilience. He began to understand that her bravery was not only in surviving, but in continuing to trust others after all she had endured. One afternoon, Samuel decided it was time to teach her a few skills that would help her regain independence. He showed her how to ride Rusty safely, how to navigate the plains, and how to recognize signs of danger in the wild. At first, she was hesitant, unsure if her body could handle the effort. Samuel encouraged her patiently, reassuring her that she was stronger than she realized. Slowly, she mounted Rusty and rode a short distance, her confidence growing with each step. As the days turned into weeks, the woman's recovery progressed. She was able to walk longer distances, tend to small tasks, and even help care for Rusty. Samuel watched her with pride, seeing her transformation from a frightened, wounded traveler into a strong, capable woman. He realized that this journey had changed both of them. He had learned patience, compassion, and the true meaning of courage, while she had regained her strength, trust, and hope for the future. Despite the progress, challenges remained. Some villagers still harbored doubts and suspicion, influenced by old fears and prejudices. Samuel faced these quietly, choosing to lead by example rather than confrontation. He treated the woman with kindness and respect, showed her abilities and character to others, and allowed her actions to speak louder than words. Over time, the town's attitude began to shift. People started to see her as a person, not just an outsider, and respect replaced fear. The woman began to form her own connections in the town. She spoke with Martha often, learning about local remedies, cooking, and daily routines. She also interacted cautiously with other villagers, gradually realizing that not everyone intended harm. Samuel encouraged her independence, always remaining nearby to provide guidance and protection when needed. Rusty, too, became a source of comfort and confidence, helping her feel grounded in a place far from home. One morning, Samuel suggested they take a short trip outside the town to help the woman reconnect with the plains. The journey was slow and careful, but it allowed her to regain confidence in her movements and skills. She began to recognize landmarks, understand the natural signs around her, and even ride Rusty without hesitation. Samuel felt a deep sense of pride as he watched her navigate the open land with growing assurance. During this journey, the woman shared more of her story. She spoke of the hardships her family had faced, the dangers of the journey she had taken, and the moments of hope that had kept her moving forward. Samuel listened quietly, offering support and understanding without judgment. He realized that the healing process was not just about tending to wounds, but also about listening, acknowledging pain, and providing reassurance. Back in town, Samuel continued to advocate for her, encouraging villagers to see beyond old fears and prejudices. Slowly, they began to accept her presence, understanding that she had faced great hardships and was now part of the community in her own way. Samuel's patience and quiet courage had made a difference, creating an environment of understanding and compassion. Over time, the woman regained her full strength. She could walk, ride Rusty, and perform daily tasks independently. Samuel watched her with admiration, proud of her resilience and determination. The bond they had formed during the journey and recovery had grown strong, built on trust, care, and mutual respect. Rusty remained a constant companion, loyal and dependable, connecting the two of them even more. The woman began to express her gratitude more openly, sharing smiles and stories, helping with small tasks around the town, and interacting with the villagers who had once doubted her. Samuel noticed how much she had grown, not just physically but emotionally and mentally. Her courage, trust, and strength had returned, and she was now ready to face the world beyond the town. One evening, Samuel and the woman sat together by the fire, reflecting on the journey they had taken. The plains stretched endlessly beyond the town, and the sky was painted with the colors of the setting sun. She spoke of her hopes, her family, and the future she dreamed of. Samuel listened, offering encouragement and guidance, understanding that her journey was far from over, but that she was now strong enough to continue it on her own terms. Samuel realized that helping her had changed him as well. He had learned patience, compassion, and the importance of standing firm in the face of doubt and fear. The experience had taught him that courage is not only about surviving the dangers of the plains, but also about helping others when they need it most. The bond they shared and the lessons learned would remain with him for the rest of his life. As night fell, the town grew quiet. Samuel, the woman, and Rusty settled near the fire, enjoying the peaceful evening. The journey of healing and trust had reached a significant point, but there was still more to come. The woman had regained her strength, the town had begun to accept her, and Samuel had proven that compassion and courage could overcome fear and suspicion. The days ahead promised new challenges and opportunities, but for now, they enjoyed the calm and the sense of accomplishment that came from overcoming hardship together. The woman had recovered, Rusty was safe, and Samuel had fulfilled his duty as a friend, protector, and guide. The bond they had formed was strong and enduring, built on trust, respect, and shared experience. The morning air was crisp as Samuel prepared for the next stage of the journey. The wounded woman, now fully recovered, stood beside Rusty, her eyes steady and bright with determination. The days of care, patience, and quiet guidance had transformed her. She was strong, confident, and ready to continue her journey toward her family and her people. Samuel felt a mixture of pride, relief, and a quiet sadness. He had grown attached to her, but he knew her path lay beyond the town where her family waited. The town had come to accept her presence, and the villagers offered words of encouragement for her journey. Some brought supplies, blankets, dried food, and water for the road ahead. Samuel made sure she had everything she needed, checking each item carefully. Rusty nickered softly, sensing the significance of the moment. The loyal horse had been a constant companion throughout the journey, bridging the bond between Samuel and the woman. Now, as they prepared to leave, Rusty seemed to understand that this was the beginning of another chapter. Before setting off, Samuel and the woman walked quietly to a small hill overlooking the plains. The vast expanse stretched out before them, golden and endless under the morning sun. She turned to Samuel, her expression reflecting gratitude, respect, and a hint of sorrow at leaving the place that had become safe. Samuel nodded, offering a reassuring smile. "You are strong enough now. Your journey continues, and I know you will be safe," he said gently. The ride began slowly, with Samuel walking beside Rusty as the woman guided the horse carefully across the plains. She had learned so much in the past weeks: how to navigate the terrain, how to read signs of danger, and how to move with care and confidence. Samuel offered advice when needed but allowed her to take the lead, understanding that independence was now her greatest strength. As they traveled, she spoke of her family, her hopes, and the life she wished to return to. Samuel listened quietly, offering encouragement and support without interrupting. The plains stretched endlessly, yet each step forward was filled with purpose and determination. The woman's confidence grew with every mile, and Samuel felt a deep sense of pride in her resilience. He knew she had faced unimaginable hardships, yet she had emerged stronger, wiser, and courageous. The journey was not without challenges. The weather shifted, with sudden gusts of wind and patches of uneven ground that tested her skill and Rusty's patience. Samuel stayed close, offering guidance and reassurance, but he allowed her to make her own decisions, knowing that confidence would carry her safely through the journey. The bond they had formed made every challenge more manageable. Rusty remained calm, responding to both Samuel and the woman with loyalty and understanding. As the day progressed, they encountered other travelers and small groups along the way. Some were curious, others cautious, and a few offered assistance. The woman had learned to communicate confidently and calmly, speaking with clarity and respect. Samuel observed her interactions quietly, noticing how far she had come since the first day he had found her wounded and frightened. Each step forward reinforced her growth and strength. By late afternoon, they reached a familiar landmark, the edge of the terrain where she had first been separated from her family. The sight stirred emotions within her, a mixture of hope, longing, and apprehension. Samuel remained close, offering steady support. "You are almost there," he said softly. "Your family will be waiting. You are ready." She nodded, her eyes reflecting determination and gratitude. They continued through the evening, the sun lowering in the sky and painting the plains in shades of gold and orange. Rusty moved steadily beneath them, tireless and dependable. Samuel marveled at the resilience of both the woman and the horse. The journey had tested them in every way, yet they had endured together. The bond formed in hardship had transformed into mutual respect and understanding. As twilight approached, they finally spotted signs of her people's camp in the distance. Smoke rose gently from small fires, and figures could be seen moving about. The woman's face lit up with recognition and relief. Samuel slowed Rusty, allowing her to take in the sight fully. The journey had been long, difficult, and filled with uncertainty, but now the reward was visible. Her family awaited, and she would be reunited with them. The reunion was quiet but heartfelt. Family members embraced her, tears of relief and joy shining in their eyes. Samuel watched from a short distance, a sense of fulfillment washing over him. He had helped guide her through danger, injury, and fear, and now she was safe. Rusty nickered softly, sensing the happiness and relief in the air. The woman turned to Samuel and offered a deep, sincere bow of gratitude. Words were unnecessary, her eyes spoke volumes. Samuel felt a mixture of emotions, pride, happiness, and a quiet sense of loss. He had grown attached to her and to the journey they had shared. Yet he knew that the right choice had been made. She belonged here with her family, safe and strong. The lessons learned, the trust built, and the compassion shared would remain with him forever. Before leaving, the woman spoke softly to Samuel, her voice calm and steady. She thanked him for his courage, his patience, and his unwavering support. Samuel nodded, acknowledging her words with humility. He had done what he believed was right, guided by honor, empathy, and the bond of trust formed through shared hardship. Rusty nudged him gently, reminding him of their own shared journey. As Samuel rode back toward the town, he reflected on the events of the past weeks. He had faced uncertainty, danger, and doubt, yet he had remained steadfast in his purpose. The woman's recovery, the trust they had built, and her safe reunion with her family represented the triumph of courage, empathy, and human connection. Samuel realized that the journey had changed him as well, teaching lessons that would remain with him for a lifetime. Returning to the town, Samuel was greeted by familiar faces. Villagers who had once been cautious now approached with smiles and respect. The story of his actions, his courage, and the woman's recovery had spread, inspiring admiration and trust. Samuel felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that the values of compassion, patience, and courage could influence others in meaningful ways. Rusty trotted faithfully beside him, a loyal companion and witness to the entire journey. Samuel spent the evening reflecting on the journey's lessons. The plains had tested him physically and emotionally, but they had also revealed the strength of human connection, the power of trust, and the importance of standing firm in the face of fear and uncertainty. The woman's journey had ended safely, but the impact of their shared experience would continue to resonate for both of them. In the days that followed, Samuel returned to his usual routines, patrolling the plains, caring for Rusty, and helping the town where he could. Yet the memory of the journey remained vivid, a reminder of the importance of courage, empathy, and compassion. The bond formed with the woman, the trust earned, and the lessons learned would influence him in every decision he made. The town had grown stronger as well. People had witnessed the importance of helping others, of looking beyond fear and prejudice, and of acting with integrity and courage. Samuel's actions had set an example, showing that even in a world often filled with uncertainty and danger, kindness and bravery could make a real difference. As the sun set over the plains, Samuel sat quietly by Rusty, gazing at the horizon. The colors of the sky reflected the journey they had taken, golden, vast, and full of possibility. He thought of the woman, safe with her family, and felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The plains, once a place of uncertainty and risk, had become a place of growth, trust, and shared humanity. Samuel knew that life would continue, filled with new challenges and opportunities. Yet the journey he had shared with the woman would remain a defining moment, a story of courage, compassion, and the enduring power of trust. Rusty nuzzled him gently, and Samuel smiled, grateful for the loyal companion who had been by his side through every step of the journey. The story ended not with a sense of finality, but with hope, strength, and the knowledge that acts of courage and compassion could create lasting change. Samuel had set out to find his horse and had discovered so much more: the power of empathy, the resilience of the human spirit, and the unbreakable bonds formed through shared experience. As night fell, Samuel prepared for rest, reflecting on the journey with a quiet heart. The plains stretched endlessly beyond, full of challenges, beauty, and possibility. Rusty grazed nearby, calm and steady, and Samuel knew that together they could face whatever the future held. The woman's safe return marked the conclusion of one chapter, but the lessons and memories of the journey would remain, shaping Samuel, the town, and all those who witnessed the story of courage and compassion.